Carpenter. This is Usula Media. Thanks for joining me today. I'm excited about today's show because this season I've been talking about switching gears and doing that in your life with several different things, because staying, status quo is really not acceptable to most people, or shouldn't be acceptable to most people. So today's guest is somebody who knows all too well about that in many areas of his life, and we're going to let him tell you about that. But today I have John Bair. Hey, John.
How you doing, Britt?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming out today. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Good. Sorry, I'm a little conscious here. I spilled some water. It looks like I peed my pants or something like that, But
just sweating.
And it's wet, yeah. But thanks for coming out. And it's been a hell of a week. The weather's been brutal.
Yeah.
Code
Blue.
brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, code blue for a while. Braving these weathers and getting out here.
Yeah.
But I don't think that bothers you much, does it?
No. The weather is just another thing that I would say I have to deal with. But for me, the mission always supersedes anything. So I just kind of look at, this is what I have to deal with today. Okay, no worries. We'll still get the work done.
I don't really even think it was that cold.
The beginning of the week was like some negative, or like 6,
early in the morning.
Right.
Early in the morning.
And I get up early in the mornings.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that too, But
yeah.
That's maybe one reason why I wasn't around. No, that wasn't. I had appointments.
Whatever, man.
The weather hasn't stopped me either, but it was brutally cold about letting the dogs out at 4 and 5 a.m.
How did they do? Did they even go out? Mine
My
wouldn't.
dogs, yeah, they love it outside.
Really?
Yeah, thank gosh, because I didn't want to walk them.
Okay.
I wanted to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually ticked off at me because I'm not, they sit at the door and stare at me, and I'm like, back.
It's cold, man.
It's really cold. I'm just not
hip.
into it. I'll make that excuse. People aren't shoveling, my hip, I'll fall, I'll break it.
Yeah.
But, John, I know you. I know.
You do.
I know your story, but I don't know all your story.
Sure.
Nobody really knows everybody's story full. But, our story is what really gets us to where we are and who we are and what we do. And, so who are you, John? Tell everybody, who are you?
Well, my name is John. That's who I am. What else would you like to know?
Come on, man. You can talk, and I know you can.
You're right.
Share. Who are you? What you do? Why do you do it? And peel that back. I mean, you on your podcast, same thing. Peel back. You talk to people all the time.
I do.
And you actually peel back their layers.
I do.
To really expose them and make them vulnerable in many ways on your podcast, at your studio, at the gym.
In the gym.
In the gym you do that.
Yeah.
You do that when you're having conversations with them, just sitting down with coffee.
Yeah.
It's easy for you to do that, isn't it? It's easy to ask the questions.
Well, I wouldn't say it's easy. I would say that it is what I have become better at, right? So sitting here answering the questions, I mean, I'm not in love with talking about myself. So what I might ask is, I will, because I'm here, right? And I'm a guest. What would you like your audience to know? Where do you want me to start?
Start at the beginning, man. Why do you do what you do? Like, first of all, what do you do?
Okay. Man, that's a good question.
Yeah.
There's a lot that I do. Why I do what I do, the short answer, I lost my brother to suicide October 8th, 2007. And then on October 30th, 2008, the day after the Phillies won the World Series, I lost my cousin to muscular dystrophy. And at the time, I was 25 years old, and I had lost both of my best friends. And it crushed me to the point where I didn't know what to do, how to move forward. And for a long time, I didn't. It took me 2 or 3 months after the shock of some of those things started to wear off, to find myself in a place where I was like, okay, what am I going to do with what just happened to me? Because the truth is, my brother, after taking his own life, he had shown me a way to get out of pain. We know what it's like to want to get out of pain, to mask that, to hide it. And I made a conscious decision that while I had a way out if I wanted it, I wasn't ready to take that way yet. And the decision that I made was, I'm going to try everything in the here and the now. I'm going to work to find any tool that I can, or any way to move forward. Always kind of in the back of my mind, knowing I have an out. So I kind of felt like I have nothing to lose. Let me hang around a little longer and see if I can make this place worth living in. And that's really underneath all of it is I want to make life so worth living that nobody would ever consider suicide or leaving early or wanting to get caught in an active addiction or do things that would harm themselves. I know that's a big utopian goal, but that's basically what I do.
It's basically like taking those taboo things and wanting to be able to expose them and shed light on them and humanize them, because that's exactly what people don't do. And that's really what I was looking for when I said to you, who are you? What the hell do you do, man?
There you go.
And that's what it is. Like, all right, so, you talk about 2007.
Yeah.
Your brother, you were 24 years old at the time?
24.
24 at the time. Where are you from originally?
Lansdale, PA.
Right.
Montgomery County.
So a smaller suburban area.
Yes.
Where, you grew up in that. So how old was your brother at the time?
20.
All right, so he's your younger brother.
Yes, he was my younger brother.
And he struggled with some things, I assume?
He did not struggle with addiction or anything like that, to be
Mental
honest.
health?
So undiagnosed, possibly, yeah.
Well, I think there's, when we talk about mental health, we are our best doctors, to go to somebody to have them say, oh, you suffer from, this, and this. Well, I already know that.
Yeah.
I can tell, I know myself. And if you're close to somebody, that too. Something's just not right, and something's a little off, and
yeah.
We make those comments and we say them, and we try not to talk about it because we're afraid to bring that up because it is taboo and it's touchy. Mm-hmm. But at the age of 20, you have your whole life ahead of you. People always say, and that's when I really started my active addiction, and that's when I spent 28 plus years, 29 years in active addiction. So I took that away from me, and that, in a way, sometimes, it is like killing yourself in a different way, not in the literal sense, which is so much more severe and traumatic.
Correct.
But, was there anything that you could attribute that drove him to that point? Yeah.
When we were talking, Britt, and I asked you a similar, hey, why do you think you went down that road? And you said to the effect of, it was a lot of different things. I woke up with my shirt as my pillow, and I woke up in near a pile of my own vomit and things like that. And I don't, for him, I knew he had just recently gone through a tough breakup with his girlfriend that he had been with for a long time. On top of that, I compounded that because I said something really horrible to him when that happened. And I said, good, I'm glad. I hope she dies. And he got really upset with me, and he came after me, he wanted to fight me. And in hindsight, I knew that he was hurting, and I can look at the words that I said then and realize, I don't know if I was attempting to hurt him or to help him, or I thought help him break free from, hey, don't worry about her, you can move forward. I hope she's gone.
But you were doing it in a 24-year-old big brother sort of way.
I was.
Which could be really dickish sometimes. I have a brother who is
complete dick,
4 years older than I, and I couldn't stand half the things he said to me, and everything he said to me, I took very personal, and I wanted to go after him. I wanted to go after him to the point where I really couldn't stand him. Everything about him, and he would say shit like that to me.
Yeah,
I'd be pissed too. But at the age of 20, it's because at the age of 20 we're not mature enough to understand.
Correct.
And presentation's everything, as we learn.
Yes, it is.
So anyway.
Yeah.
So don't be so hard on yourself in that aspect.
Well, definitely not. I'm looking back to connect the dots, to work to understand, and while freeing myself from the guilt that I had compounded. Right. That moment wasn't one of my finest, and I can sit here and talk about it because I know that it's a learning point now, and it's something that I can branch off of with the next encounter that I might have where it's tough, but I don't fall back into reacting onto something that I'm saying just to hurt somebody.
Did you not like this girl?
Actually, I loved her. And there was really no problem. I was upset for him, and I wanted that. I don't know why, but that was my way that I thought would get him to sort of move beyond it, and it didn't.
So you were trying to be on his side, fuck her.
If you will, if you will. Yeah.
You don't need her. She's lousy. She's not
I hope she dies.
She's not
just
worth
fuck
your time,
her. Exactly.
But didn't realize the pain. How long were they dating for?
I mean, honestly, 3 years. So for him at 20 years old, maybe even longer. So it was like 3.5, 4 years. It was a quarter of his life that
Like
he had.
his first probably true love.
Yes, and I shit all over it. And so, yeah, I understand why he had rage, and I understand why he wanted to come at me. And so at that time, that was going on. Then also my parents had split up years before, and they just they weren't kind to each other, and they would talk about each other through us. And we had, it was really tough because we were all living with my mom at the time in a small apartment because, quite frankly, like, I think all of us loved our dad. We didn't like him all the time. And it was challenging to have conversations with him and to be in the same room and really to live under the same roof. And so we were all okay being out from under his guise, if you will. But we were all in a small place together. So then on top of that, we came from a very sort of poor mindset family, even though we were sort of middle class, if you will, and we had food on the table and heat and things like that. We really didn't want for things like that. What did lack was like emotional support, right? So emotionally unavailable parents. And then sort of my dad was from the Midwest, my mom also from a small town, Lansdale, and the mindset was like, well, we don't have the money for that, we can't do that, and money doesn't grow on trees, kids are meant to be seen and not heard, just shut up, stay in the corner, do what we tell you to do, and everything will be okay. And in reality, we were just learning how to like basically deregulate, turn everything off, and when real problems hit, none of us knew how to deal with anything. So it was very volatile at that time. And the day before my brother took his own life, he and I had gotten into a fist fight. We had a job together. We were delivering newspapers. So every night around midnight, we would get up and we would go to the newspaper delivery place. We would pick up our bundles of paper. He would sit in the back and like stuff them in the bags, and I would drive and throw them out the windows. So we kind of like worked together that way. And the one night, I don't remember exactly everything that happened, but we pulled up as we were finishing, and I will take the blame in that he looked at me weird or did something, and I took that as an affront, and I threw a newspaper at him, and it almost hit him in the head, and it hit him near his glasses. And I used to wear glasses. I don't know if you ever wore glasses. Anybody?
Still do.
So when anybody fucks with your eyes, it's like a switch gets flipped, and like you see red. And I had it happen to me, and when I threw the paper at him, I saw it like glance by his eyes, and he just like immediately like lit up and started charging after me and started swinging on me and got me on the ground and like tried to like hit me, and I was like maneuvering around, and then he just like tried to kick me and punch me, and then he walked away. And he walked all the way home after that day, and I finished whatever we were doing, put all the car together, whatever, went home. We didn't talk about anything. Then we got up the next night, went out and did the newspapers together, and I could sense how upset and angry and intense he felt behind me. Like I just felt this energy like piercing through the back of my neck, like he wants to kill me. And we finished the paper route. We didn't say anything to each other. And I went upstairs into our apartment, and I told that to my mom, and I was like, I can't be around Tony. I feel like he wants to kill me. And he wasn't able to control his anger and rage at that point in our lives either. And neither was I. I was not either. And so I locked the door on him. And he went around and he tried to yell up to my mom to say like, hey, please let me in, let me in. And we didn't. So he left, and he went to the gym across the street where we were working out, and he had this bag of gym clothes, and inside that bag of gym clothes were like towing straps that you would wrap on the back of a truck to put to like a trailer or something. So they were really strong, really sturdy. And he took one of those and he hung himself. And so I live with that, knowing that the day that he died, I not only did I not have his back, I turned my back on him. And that is something that has taken me a long time to shed the guilt of. Had survivor's guilt. Also in the back of my mind, knowing that I don't know if contribute is the right word. However, I certainly didn't have the awareness or ability to be present for him when he needed me most. I don't believe anybody in our family at that time had the ability to have that presence. And so, quite frankly, Britt, I believe now, if we fast forward just into I have a gym and a studio where people come, and 2 or 3 years ago, I got a letter from one of my students. Her dad had died that year. Our gym had been hit by a tornado. It was one of the worst years of her life. And the card, I still have it at home because it's one of my most prized possessions now. It said basically, John, in your darkest times, you were always there for me. And for her to write that down and give it to me and say that out loud was sort of like the release. It was, I don't know if it was like the universe saying, hey, man, you've gotten to the point where even though things are hard for you, you can be present with others. And that really, if you want to boil it down to what do, I listen to people, and I can listen to people in their worst and darkest moments, and not only not shy away, I'll hang out. And if you feel like you're burning up, I have a bucket of water that I'm willing to offer you and give it to you until you can feel like you can move forward. And there's not many people in the world that I have found that can do that. And I believe if there's a gift that came out of it, we could call it that, is my ability to sit with anybody going through anything, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't scare me.
So the 2007, October, the gym.
How do I fast forward to there?
So this occurred at a gym.
Well, he got his bag from the gym and
Okay.
then walked to a park in Lansdale, across the street. So he took his bag, went to the park across the street, did what he did.
If you think back and you like rewind in your head, other than like the confrontation that you had with him and being typical brother sort of shit, that brothers do, can you like think that there were things that you may have, seen now that you didn't see then? Like signs other than the girlfriend or the way he was acting and things like that?
Yeah.
I mean, because we're young, you don't notice stuff like that. You just also think, that's my brother. That's as simple as that. You don't ever have those, especially as you're younger.
Yeah.
But as you grew and you learned from that, that was a pain. It's one of those taking the pain into purpose sort of deals, like I like to say.
Yes.
And so you did that. So but it took you to a point to get to, and right now, you help people through pain.
I'm of service to people. I would call it in service. I don't actually believe I can help anybody.
So then let's fast forward to that. Like, how did you take that pain and make it into a purpose for yourself and switch your gears?
Perfect. So what we're going to do is go right back to 2008 after I lost my cousin, after I lost my brother. So, right, those two things happened, and I'm sitting in the middle of that. Yeah. So the one time in my life where I felt really, really strong and part of something bigger than myself, and when this happened, it was the one memory that came up that allowed me basically to not fall into addiction. Because at the time, I was dabbling in Oxycontins, so my sort of synthetic version of heroin. I was dabbling in cocaine. I was dabbling in all the stuff, and none of it numbed anything enough to not feel things. So none of that worked.
It usually doesn't.
No. So going through all of that, then losing him, I told you I made the decision, okay, he showed me how to get out of pain. I've been taking all these fucking drugs. None of that shit worked. Raging and being pissed off and angry all the time, that isn't fucking working. So the one time where I felt strong was when I was playing football for Central Bucks West in Doylestown when I was in high school. I was fortunate enough to play for a coach who, when I was on that team, we never lost a game. We went 45-0, and we won 3 state championships in a row. I don't say that to brag. I say that because of the discipline and the ability to work through challenging things was installed in me before this happened. So because I don't know if I hadn't had a background of somebody pouring some love and coaching into me and making things a little tougher so that I could adapt, that I would have been able to go back into the gym after losing my brother. I actually believe had I not had that experience, I probably wouldn't be here sitting with you today. Not in this capacity anyway. I might be out on the street and you might be handing me a bag. I don't know. But it wouldn't be, I don't believe, here doing this. So coming out of that and basically saying, okay, none of that stuff is working. I'm going to go try things. The one thing that worked was when I was working out with all the guys in the gym, playing with the football team, I felt strong and powerful. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. Go back to the gym. And that's exactly what I did because I had all this energy. I didn't know what to do with it, and I needed somewhere to channel it. And that was the most logical, even though mostly it probably wasn't a logical decision. It was I need somewhere to go and rage. And I might as well just throw some weights around and, just fucking get after it that way. So I did. And I hopped in the gym. I started going right after it like I was when I was 16, except I was 25. And I had 10 years of injuries on top of all of that football, right? And then I had all of that mental health shit on top of that. And I wasn't able to train anywhere near like I had. I felt broken all the goddamn time. It was so painful. Already everything I was going through, but then I literally couldn't just release and get rid of it. So I started to focus on eating a little differently, my nutrition. It was like the one thing that I felt like I could control. And I really understand control freaks from the sense of when you feel like your world is out of whack, you're going to hang on to something and control that, even if it's everything around you. So I started grabbing for stuff that I could control. My nutrition was awesome. And within a month of doing that, so I had been going to the same gym that my brother had been. I decided not to walk away from that, and I went right back into the same place where he was because I said I was going to face it. So I started playing basketball with some of those guys that were I was working out with, and one of those guys came up to me about a month to 6 weeks after being back in the gym pretty consistently, and he just comes over to me and he's like, "Yo, you got a minute?" I was like, "Yeah." "What are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you look better, and you're not such an angry dick. Have you changed something?" And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, I literally got mad at him, and I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Yo, man, I don't know, whatever you're doing something good. Do you think you could help me with it? Because I noticed a change in you." And it was then that it could have been a lot of things leading up to that, but it felt like a switch flipped at that moment, because it helped me understand that the thing that I had taken control of started to change my behavior, and other people noticed that, right? Like, I didn't think I was changing my behavior. I thought I was changing my nutrition. I just wanted to feel better. But that actually resulted in me being, we'll say, a little bit better quality person to be around, or more enjoyable. And it was in that moment that I realized, wow, maybe I do have some control of me and the things that I can work on. Because again, he said, "Hey, can you assist me with it?" And I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to do that versus wherever I was. So I was like, "Yeah, I can. I'll figure it out." And I started to pour myself into learning about nutrition. I started to pour myself into learning, I knew how to work out because the coaches had shown me, but I didn't know how to show others how to do that, let alone I was a 20-something-year-old kid, but I'm working with 30, 40, 50-year-old people. They have very different needs, very different wants, things I had no idea how to bridge the gap. And so out of all that pain, taking the opportunity to kind of like fall back on something that had allowed me to feel strong, somebody else noticed that and pulled me forward and out of that space enough that I could see a little light beyond the darkness. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to work towards that. And I literally made the decision. I was like, I'm going to rebuild myself physically. And of course, that's going to lead to me feeling and being, if I just get ripped and I get strong, then who's going to fuck with me? Who's going to tell me what to do? Nobody. Because, hello, right? That's the way I felt at the time. So I poured myself into the physical aspects of things. And that went well for a while. I was able to change my body. People noticed I was a little bit more well adjusted. And so more people were like, my energy was better and it started to attract versus repel. And so I started to attract some people who on the surface wanted to feel better and get physical. And what also had happened was because I couldn't train the way that I normally had, I had to learn, because I had some injuries, I had to learn how to train in such a way that didn't hurt the injuries that I had while also producing results and increasing my performance. And that wasn't really like, people didn't think that way 13, 14 years ago. They were just like, get in the gym, sweat, kick ass, lose weight. That's the way you do it. Duh. And no, it's not. Because what happened is I started to move and feel a little better through understanding the mechanics of my body and the patterns that a body can move and go through. And I started to realize that there was a better way to train and there was a better way to train people. And so I started kind of down this like functional movement / longevity track. People think they go to the gym and they're like, I want the six pack. I want the big muscles. I want to look toned and ripped and lean. I started to think about, holy crap, I've lived 25 years of my life and I hated who I was during that time. I want to have an opportunity to live a life where I don't hate who I am. And I also made another decision where I was like, I don't like the first 25 years of my life. So I'm going to choose to say I'm going to live to about 125 and I'm going to spend 100 years working towards who I think I could be. And that's been the mission of rebuilding myself, has been pouring everything into me to understand how to feel better physically. And that took me, like I said, a long way down the road. Then eventually I got to a point where I got into business. All right, let me back up. I was working out at that gym. People started to come to me at that gym. I had built up a clientele in that little gym. So I started working there. I had been working at some other job. I quit that job and I jumped in full time and I was like, okay, people want this. I'm going to give this a go. That job didn't pay a lot. I mean, that's just not, jobs don't tend to. So I found another studio in Ambler, which you know very well, near Wissahickon, where you're from. And that's really where things started to shift a little more. That was more of a training facility or a sports performance facility, and really a place that valued more the skill set that I had. It was not just show up and beat the crap out of somebody and don't care if they get hurt, just make sure they sweat hard. That didn't sit well with me morally. Like, I just didn't want to do that. I felt like the world was already in enough pain. Why the fuck would I contribute to it? So this new facility allowed me to kind of flex my new wings. And they understood and wanted me to start talking about health benefits and longevity and teaching people how to do things healthily and in a proper way without beating them up. And so I worked there for about 2 years. And then things just didn't quite work out because they wanted to head down a different path, and so did I. And so we sort of broke off at that one point. And I had a couple students come to me and they're like, yo, we want you. And again, it was... all of this has come, so I would put myself out there and I would give them whatever I had, which was really me. I had nothing else more than just like my presence, me, my energy, me standing next to you, being with you, cheering you on. And that was great, except after a while, it's like, how do you pour from an empty cup?
I was going to say, well, first of all, you really never addressed some things that you probably should have. You sort of like threw your all into it, which is great. You're moving forward, but like, you know, everything you're telling me is like everything that you tell people nowadays not to do. So back then, you learned a lot because nowadays you're different. You speak differently to people. Your attitude towards it is differently. I know this because I know you nowadays. I didn't know you back then. But what you're telling me now is sort of like shocking. I'm like, really? Because everything that you're saying right now is like, sounds real familiar, and it sounds like being on the opposite end. So you learned a little bit from that. Well, do you think that's also because maybe like, and I'm going to bring it back to the mental health. You probably didn't address the mental health. You addressed your physical health, and you oh yeah, I'm going to switch this on to like my food and my health, and you know I switched it on my food. I just ate more, you know. So and you know that didn't give a shit. You know if I could have, but like you know, and I look at people in the gym, and that's one reason I hate the gyms. And I told you this many times. I hate going to the gym because people in the gym sometimes I look at like, is this all you have? Some people, because they're there 6 days a week, 7 days a week, and they can't miss leg day, and they can't miss back day, and they can't miss this and cardio. And I get that, and that's a way of life, and it is. And that's a great, healthy way of life. But like, is that all there is to it?
No.
Are you missing a cog somewhere?
Yep.
You know, because, you know, now you're what, 42, 44?
43, yeah.
Okay, so right there.
Yeah.
That was close.
Yeah, you were right on it.
43.
Yeah.
Well, I was just trying to do the math from 2007 at 25. I listen. You know, and you look at that like that. There's a missing cog.
So you hit on a great point right there, right? So yes, I jumped into working on my physical health, working on nutrition, things I could control. What that led to was me then the realization that okay, I can't just always keep working on this. Because what happened was I had started my business. I had some clientele. You start getting into personal relationships, right? Except then when you're in a personal relationship and you're a person who hurts and then you hurt the people that you're in a relationship with, you start to realize, oh man, just working on my fitness, just working on my nutrition didn't change all my behaviors.
Well, no, because what you did was it became an addiction. And people don't look at stuff like that, and they forget about that. Like, you took what is a very positive thing, because it is positive. What you do is positive. What working out is positive. Being healthy, it's positive. Let's face it. You know, more than half of America can listen to that. You know, the way we are, and that's cool. I'm in that half. But it becomes an addiction. Anything's an obsession. Those obsessions are addictions. Mm-hmm. You know, and people that are, you know, and I liken that to anything like that people become obsessed over and focused or hyper-focused on. And when you become hyper-vigilant about something that consumes you, that's not so healthy.
Well, all right, so let's flip it back on you. It's your show, but I'm going to... Coming out of
wrong
addiction.
Answer.
Yeah,
it's
wrong.
Not about me.
Yeah, well, I know it's not, but it ties in to this point. So what did you do after getting out of addiction? Did you decide to start taking care of yourself? No, you threw yourself into fucking Philly Unknown.
Well, I had to take care of myself.
A little bit, right?
I had to go to IOP 4 days a
yeah,
week.
come
like
out of that.
But
then it stopped, and where'd you go?
And then I had to go to meetings. I had to do, but no, I did. But then I did throw myself in the Philly Unknown. So fuck you. All right.
Right.
I get
so
your
fuck
point.
me back,
But
and
it's
that's
not
cool.
about me.
Fuck you
It's
too.
not you.
All right, no problem.
So, but it does become an addiction. I get it. It's an obsession. And I did. I obsessed for years over Philly Unknown, and I threw myself into it. But then I had to learn that balance. So how do you learn that balance, John? Because you are also that A-type personality, I believe, that...
I'm driven. I wouldn't call myself a type A, but I am very driven.
I think type A's are driven. I think, and there's a regimen too. I think
type A's are assholes.
Type A people have
I'm not an asshole.
Yeah, but that's a connotation people have of it, because most type A's are talked about as assholes.
All right, you know what?
There's
That's
a lot
not.
of type A's that
Maybe
aren't
that's
assholes.
unfair. Maybe that's unfair.
Yeah.
Maybe that's unfair. That's fair. Okay, so yes, I'm a driven person, but how did I get to the point where I had to look and go to the next level? Yeah. When I started realizing that, like I was focusing all my energy and time on this thing, and the returns weren't showing up in the relationship and other areas where I wanted to grow and get better, which then I had to like realize, hey, dude, there's still more work to do. And it took 2 failed relationships that really, really hurt. I was with one woman for like a month, not a month, a year and a half, and another one like a year. And that was within like a 3-year period. And they both ended really negatively. And the only commonality in that was me. Right? So I then started to realize like, yo, you've got the physical under control, the nutrition, all those things. What else is there? Like, and that's where like those layers, like you don't know what you don't know until you become aware of what you do know. So I was like, okay, I'm doing all this stuff, right? But there's these other things that you still want that you don't have. And emotionally, I started to realize I was just like my parents. I was unavailable. I was not present. I was able to be present with my clients because it's something that gratified me and obviously gave me something back. It did. I won't lie. You told me on my podcast that you started Philly Unknown selfishly because you needed a place to. That's why I started Bair Knuckle Strength.
Absolutely.
Selfishly, to rebuild
we
myself.
Throw ourselves into something to, like I said, turn that pain into purpose.
Correct.
But if we don't work on all aspects and become well-rounded, then we become that asshole.
There it is.
There it is. Point blank, plain and simple.
Fair enough.
Then we become that. And you start to realize that because now all of a sudden you're not a 3-dimensional person. Mm-hmm. Think about that. There's no well-rounded to it. It's not 3-dimensional because that's all you are. And I'll give it like a close friend of mine, and he was also my boss for many years. He owned the restaurant bar that I bartended at. Mm-hmm. And he was in that cult that they call CrossFit. Mm-hmm. And he was one of those that would come in and be like, look at this app. Oh my gosh, did you see how many I did this? The reps I did. And I was like, really, dude? I'm like, that's all you got from me every day? Get out of my face. Yeah. Only because if that's all you are, then you suck. Because you're only that little microcosm of who you could be. I'm sorry, that's the way I feel. Well, so Philly Unknown, I sucked for after a while because guess what? That's all I became, and then I had that attitude was, I'm Philly Unknown. Right. That's who I am. That's what I'm meant to be. Then I was like, wait, maybe there's a little bit more to this life, Yep. And then you had to. Then I branch out. That's why I have to have boundaries, healthy boundaries, setting them. I have trouble still. Sure. But, so, that leads to you, back to Bair Knuckle.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about that.
You got it.
That right there is sort of a therapy, I believe.
Well,
not just for you, but for the people that go there.
Yes.
The demographic of person.
Well, you've seen the demographic of person.
I am that demographic.
Pretty wide.
Yeah, but it's wide as far as, maybe age from the above 40 group that you work with, because Bair Knuckles is 40 over. Yes. The body types, the backgrounds, but not the demographic of the mental aspect of why we're there. And why we're there, and why do people come to you in that aspect?
Well, because they went to the CrossFit gym, or they went to the Lululemon gym, and they went to the big box gym, and they didn't fit in. And what I have come to find, and this might not be the best term for it, however, I think it sums it up, we're the island of misfit toys. So if you don't fit in anywhere else, I got a space for you. Because all I want to do is listen to who you are. I don't want to fit you in a box. I don't want to make you do anything that you don't want to do. Here's why I'm so passionate about like working with people in their physical selves. Because I know if they don't feel good and they're not okay, we'll say, in their body, they're not producing their best work in the world, and most likely they're probably hurting people or holding back and slowing things down. That isn't acceptable to me. So when somebody has a shoulder pain or hip pain or whatever, and they're
it's a personal attack right there, bro.
Hey, don't take it personally. Come on, I pointed no fingers.
Hip, there we go.
Yeah, a knee, a back, right, whatever. How's that, right?
I feel less personally attacked.
There you go. A head, whatever the thing is that kind of messes with you. If that's the thing holding you back, and then you refuse to look at it, you are a liability to other people. Not an asset. And that's not okay with me. That's what I started to realize. My anger, my pain, who I was a liability to other people because I couldn't walk into a room and have them trust who I was. They would walk on eggshells around me. And that's not a way to live. To be around any kind of person who either shuts down because they don't know how to express themselves, or they rage and they just go over the top of everybody because they don't know how to express themselves. That kind of shit, I started to realize I was doing it and I was tired of it, and it wasn't getting me what I wanted. So I had to look in the mirror and say to myself, hey man, I'm not okay.
So now that you brought that up finally, now that because you had the shirt on, and this is a great way to like segue into this before, what is the premise of, I know what it is.
Sure.
But what is the premise of I am not okay, and why is that so important to you, and how have you cultivated that?
Got it. Has anybody asked you if you're okay and you said yes when you knew that you weren't?
All the time.
Great. Well, that's my problem. We're all lying to each other all the time, and no change can come from that. If you want to make it as simple as that. Now, I could unpack it if you'd like.
So if somebody were to say, so somebody says to you, hey, John, how you doing? You say, I'm not okay.
Well, I mean, it's not that I like make an emphasis of it, but they're like, hey, how you doing?
I'm doing that for,
Well,
effect.
if you asked me, I'd say like, I am not okay. I would, because that's the truth.
How long did it take you to get there?
2021. So 3 years ago. So 40 years to start telling myself the truth.
It's a long time.
Long time.
But you got there.
Yeah.
You just have to remind yourself that every day.
Yes. It's
a humbling thing, isn't it?
It's something that if you didn't grow up experiencing, or it wasn't modeled to you in life to really just say what's real in a way that you are okay saying it. Some people might not say, and I've had people say, I would never say that to somebody out loud. Okay, then don't. What would you say? Because if you continue to lie, I'm going to call you out. We're not going to sit here and do that shit where I can see that you're struggling with something and you want to tell me that you're okay when I fucking know you're not. Because usually what happens is we're trying to work together, and that thing that you're not okay with is holding you back from what you want, which is why I've learned to be like, okay, I'm going to shine a light on it. I'm not going to extract it. I'm not going to pull it out. That's not my work. But if we're going to work together, my work is to be the light.
And it's funny when you say it, like in recovery, we have that saying, especially in the rooms, the truth shall set you free. And there's nothing more liberating than that. However, in today's society, everything's taboo. The stigma, there's so much stigma out there. There's stigma about talking about suicide. Be able to talk about something like that is amazing. To be able to be free to talk about vulnerable, to be able to talk about addiction like we do, to be able to talk about mental health, all these taboo things that when we were younger and we had parents like we did telling us, you don't talk about that, suck it up and just deal with it. We don't have problems, we don't have to deal with this. I think these are all things that have to be talked about and have to be a voice for us, so that voice is powerful.
Yes.
And you do that in many aspects of it.
I do.
And you do that for many people. You do that at Bair Knuckles, which is your studio, and where's that located?
Fort Washington in Montgomery County.
Montgomery County.
Right outside of Philly.
It's not that far. If it's for yourself, it's worth it. For sure. But what do you do for yourself then to balance all this?
Okay. So, yes, I work on my physical and my nutrition, and I started Bair Knuckle Strength. Coming to the realization that I wanted to start telling myself the truth. And when I looked in the mirror the one day, I had in the back of my head, you're okay, you're fine, just get on with it. And I wasn't. And I literally looked at myself and I was like, you're not okay. And that led to, okay, I've been doing all this physical stuff. What's the next level? It's time for me. I have gotten myself to where I'm strong enough to truly be vulnerable to talk about these hard things. I didn't have the constitution. I needed to rebuild myself physically to lead to the talking. Some people are really good at the talking, and on the back end find themselves needing to take care of themselves physically, right? And because they do so much for other people. So it really just depends on where you're coming from. I did. It was you.
I know you did.
Absolutely. Well, that's why we like each other.
That's very true,
dude,
though.
you are so mission driven, and I love what you do, that you threw yourself into it at your own detriment for a little bit. You're starting to, I saw the post that you put out that you're going to Florida, you're going to do some self-care. Look at you, man. Like, this is what your people need to see, is you taking care of you, because then they can keep buying in because they know you'll be there for them. Me, on the flip, was I was physically working out all these things, but I wasn't talking about shit. And I sure as fuck wasn't sharing it with anybody in my inner circle. Then when I kind of came to that realization of I am not okay, within 6 weeks, I bought the website, iamnotokay.com, and I started developing that as sort of like a blog, an expression, a place where I could pour some of those words into. And that led me to my podcast, right? The realization that it was time to start talking about these things. The cool part of that was it wasn't me per se that was exactly like, I need to start a podcast. I knew I needed to talk about it. My mom came to me one day, sort of out of left field, and she's like, John, I think we should start a podcast. And I think we should talk about what happened with Tony. I think we should talk about what happened when you guys were growing up and me and your dad got divorced. And that was really, the impetus for starting a podcast. Was I thought it might be 20, 30 episodes of just us sort of sitting down, group therapy, getting things out. What I didn't realize was when we started doing that, I would get like messages in Instagram and I'd get emails, and people are like, yo, what you guys are doing is freaking unbelievable. The stuff that you're talking about out loud in front of people, how the hell are you doing that? And well, what I realized was we jumped all the way into the deep end again, because that's a space where not a lot of people are. First of all, if it's that heavy, you won't even put words to it because you can't access it yet. You have to feel safe inside yourself some way. Either somebody makes you feel safe or you learn to make yourself feel safe before you can kind of peel back the layer of getting to the real root of what's underneath all of your pain. And so going down this road with my mom and my sister, I should add, we all would sit down. We sat down for about 17 or 18 episodes before I started interviewing other people and bringing others from the outside in. But we called it Bair It All because we wanted to literally say everything, put it out and get it outside of us. And like I said, doing that brought another level of power. As people were like, yo, I have a story. You have a story.
Everybody has a story.
And what I realized was I was like, okay, well, it doesn't have to just be me, my mom, and my sister sitting here trauma dumping all the time. We could go and talk to people and understand their story as the whole, right? They're humans. We're humans. What led you to where you are? What led you to where you are? Oh, I see. Mine was this, but yours is that. And I could see how I could get there if I did that too. I'm going to borrow that from you. And the telling of these stories, the healing, the camaraderie, the community is starting to come out of that. I don't want to be around a bunch of hurt fucking people all the time. I want to be around people who are working on hurting less and doing more.
And that's what you're doing right now.
And that's it.
It's the power of connection, power of telling your story, being vulnerable.
Oof.
You know, everybody has that story. You know, and the play on words, Bair, because your last name, Bair, B-A-I-R.
B-A-I-R.
So it's Bair Knuckle Studio. Is your studio out in
Bair Knuckle Strength.
Strength, I'm sorry. Bair
That's
Knuckle
okay.
Strength, BKS, Bair Knuckle Strength.
Yes.
And your podcast is Bair It All.
Bair It All, the
Bair It
Kintsugi
All.
Chronicles.
And your website is, you still have iamnotokay.com?
So I have two websites. We'll say www.bairknucklestrength.com, B-A-I-R Knuckle Strength, or www.iamnotokay.com.
That's a great website to have.
It's an amazing website to have.
Really
It's
have.
like
You get on there and-
digital real estate. I didn't realize was such a thing.
Absolutely. But you know, and I think there's power in everything that you talked about today. I mean, you talked about some taboo things. If we had a ton of time, we'd talk about more and more things and being able to share that. And I think that helps everybody else's journey. You know, that's why being a voice is so important. That's why it's important talking about why switching gears helps people in life.
Yes.
And it's helped you. And you now have helped so many others because of that. And you continue to do so. So that's great. But thank you so much for coming out today. Glad we finally did this. It's been a long time coming. Been planning it, I think, since before COVID, maybe?
It's been a while. Yeah,
It's been long
Because
enough.
you were shooting Philly Unknown, I think, at the time with Justin, which was like right in the middle of COVID, and it's been 3.5 years.
Well, we got it done.
We
So
got it
finally,
done, dude.
Patience, man.
Yeah.
But I thank you. I thank you for all you do for me, for everybody else, and keep doing it. For everybody else out there, check him out. Check out John. We're gonna get you some information on him. But John Bair, check out Bair Knuckle Strength, which is an amazing studio, and check out I Am Not Okay. Thank you so much for being here today, John.
Britt, thank you for having me. See you in the gym.
Absolutely. And everybody else out there, thank you all for showing up as always. Remember, whatever it is you stand for, be a voice. I'm Britt Carpenter. This is Usula Media. Have a great rest of your day.